Elara Vance was having a perfectly normal Tuesday, which for Elara meant a double shift at the indie bookstore, followed by an evening of perfecting her grandmother's legendary lemon meringue pie recipe. Her life in the quiet, tree-lined suburbs of Portland was predictable, comfortable, and utterly devoid of anything resembling drama. She was 22, a history major grotto who'd found her true calling among dusty tomes and the scent of old paper. She loved her routine, her small apartment filled with books and plants, and her grandmother's comforting presence. Just a few blocks away, the day started like any other. The bell above the bookstore door chimed merrily. Customers browsed, and Elara shelved new arrivals humming along to the soft jazz playing overhead. She was halfway through recommending a lesser-known historical fiction novel to a customer when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. It was an unfamiliar number, a New York City area code. Elara usually ignored unknown calls, but something tugged at her. Maybe it was her grandmother forgetting she'd changed her number again. She excused herself, stepped into the small break room, and answered. "Hello?" A deep, professional voice on the other end said, "Is this Ms. Elara Vance?" "This is she," Elara replied, a slight note of caution in her tone. "Ms. Vance, my name is Arthur Jenkins. I'm a senior partner at Jenkins & Thorne. Legal, I'm calling concerning an extremely sensitive matter. It pertains to a rather unique inheritance." Elara's brow furrowed. Inheritance. Her grandmother was alive and well, though prone to dramatic pronouncements about her eventual demise. Her parents, bless their quiet hearts, certainly weren't wealthy. "I think you have the wrong Elara Vance, Mr. Jenkins. I don't know anyone who would leave me an inheritance. Are you the Elara Vance born on October 12th, 2001 to Catherine Vance in Portland, Oregon?" He pressed, his voice unwavering. Elara paused. That was her, precisely her. A shiver not entirely unpleasant ran down her spine. "Yes, that's me. My firm has arranged for your travel to our offices in New York. All expenses will be covered." Elara's mind raced. This was either an elaborate scam or something truly bizarre. Her pragmatic nature screamed, "Scam!" But a flicker of curiosity, the kind that made her devour historical mysteries, urged her on. "Mr. Jenkins, with all due respect, this sounds unbelievable. What kind of revelation are we talking about?" There was a brief silence on the line. Then, Mr. Jenkins, voice lower now, almost hesitant. "Ms. Vance, what I am about to tell you might be difficult to process. It concerns your biological parentage, specifically your biological father. We have irrefutable DNA evidence that links you directly to Elvis Presley." Elara felt the blood drain from her face, leaving her cold and lightheaded. The name hung in the air, a phantom chord from a bygone era. Reverberating through her small break room, the man whose face adorned countless posters, whose voice defined an entire generation. That Elvis Presley. That's impossible," Elara whispered, clutching the phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her mother, Catherine, a quiet, unassuming woman who taught elementary school art, had always been incredibly private about Elara's father. She'd simply said he was a kind man, a musician who had passed away before Elara was born. A simple story, accepted without question. No photos, no detailed memories, just a gentle sadness whenever the topic arose. "Ms. Vance, I understand your disbelief. It is a reaction we anticipated. A posthumous paternity test was commissioned years ago, under strict confidentiality, and the results are conclusive." Elara sank onto the worn plastic chair, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and shock. Elvis Presley, her father. It felt like a bad dream, a storyline from a cheap tabloid, not her reality. She thought of her mother, of the quiet life they'd built. Why would her mother keep such a monumental secret? And how In the name of all that was holy, could she be the daughter of one of the most famous men in history? She looked down at her hands, ordinary hands slightly stained with ink from the books. Did they hold any trace of musical talent? Any hint of the charisma that defined a global icon? I need time, Elara stammered, her voice barely audible. This is a lot. Call ended, leaving Elara in stunned silence. The soft jazz from the bookstore felt distant, irrelevant. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic rhythm that echoed the chaos in her mind. Elvis Presley, her father. The words formed, then dissipated, then formed again, each time more surreal than the last. She closed her eyes, trying to find a footing in this suddenly unrecognizable world. Her perfectly normal Tuesday had just become anything but the lemon meringue pie. Could wait. Nothing would ever be the same again. Elara walked home from the bookstore in a daze, the setting sun casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to stretch into an uncertain future. The email from Jenkins and Thorne Legal was already waiting when she unlocked her apartment door. The subject line, "Confidential, Presley Estate Matter," sent another jolt through her. She clicked it open with trembling fingers. Attached were flight details, hotel reservations, and a brief official-looking document confirming the firm's intent to represent her in a probate case. No mention of Elvis's name, just a significant inheritance and complex familial relationships. The DNA evidence was only hinted at. She scrolled through her mind, a jumble of disbelief and a strange, almost fearful excitement. Could this truly be real? Or was it some elaborate identity theft scheme, a sophisticated scam, targeting her quiet, unassuming life? She had heard stories. Maybe someone was trying to lure her to New York for some sinister purpose. The thought chilled her. Her first instinct was to call her mother. Catherine, however, was on a meditation retreat in the mountains, disconnected from the world. Her grandmother, Alice, was her next thought. Grandma Alice, with her no-nonsense attitude and a lifetime of common sense, would know what to do. Elara found her grandmother in her cozy cottage tending to a pot of simmering soup. The scent of herbs and warmth usually brought her comfort, but tonight it felt like a fragile shield against the storm brewing inside her. "Grandma," Elara began, her voice strained. "I need to talk to you about something incredible." Alice, a spry woman with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing, turned from the stove. "Incredible good or incredible bad, sweet pea?" she asked, her gaze steady. Elara took a deep breath and recounted the phone call, the email, the impossible name. She watched her grandmother's face for a flicker of recognition, a sign that perhaps this wasn't entirely new to her. But Alice's expression remained unreadable, only a deepening of the lines around her eyes as Elara spoke of Elvis Presley. When Elara finished, the cottage was silent save for the gentle bubbling of the soup. Alice slowly wiped her hands on a dish towel. "Elvis Presley," she repeated, her voice a thoughtful murmur. "Well, that certainly puts a new spin on things. You don't think it's a scam?" Elara asked, hope and dread warring within her. Alice frowned. Could be. There are bad people out there, but a law firm from New York? And offering to fly you out? That's a lot of effort for a scam. Unless it's a very big one. My gut says it's insane, Elara admitted. But also there's a part of me that's curious. My mother was always so closed off about my father. Just a kind musician who passed away. No photos, no stories. It was always so vague. Maybe there was a reason. Your mother carried a lot of secrets. She always did, and she was a fiercely private woman, especially about things that might hurt her or others. If this were true, it would explain a great deal about her reticence. So you think I should go? Alice walked over, placed a warm, comforting hand on Elara's arm. I think you have to, not just for any inheritance, Elara, but for answers for your own truth You deserve to know who you are. Truly, just be careful. Trust your instincts. And call me every step of the way." Her grandmother's quiet support gave Elara the courage she needed. The next morning, she confirmed her travel plans with Mr. Jenkins' assistant. The flight was booked for the day after tomorrow. 2 days to prepare for a life-altering revelation. The flight to New York was a blur. Elara pressed her face against the window, watching the patchwork of cities and fields blur beneath the plane. She thought of Elvis, the icon, the legend. She tried to imagine him as a father, a man, stripped of the rhinestone jumpsuits and the screaming fans. It was impossible. He was a myth, a part of history. How could he be a part of her history? She arrived in the bustling chaos of New York City, a stark contrast to her quiet Portland life. A car arranged by the firm was waiting for her, whisking her through the traffic to a sleek modern hotel in Midtown. The luxury felt alien, overwhelming. She was a bookstore clerk, not a high-profile heiress. The next morning, dressed in the nicest outfit, she owned a simple navy dress. Elara made her way to the address provided. Jenkins and Thorne Legal occupied several floors of a towering glass building. The lobby was hushed, opulent, filled with polished marble and hushed whispers. She announced herself at the reception desk, and within minutes she was escorted to a large, imposing office overlooking the city. Mr. Arthur Jenkins rose from behind a massive mahogany desk as she entered. He was an older man, impeccably dressed, with a stern face that softened slightly as he gestured to a comfortable armchair. "Ms. Vance, thank you for coming. I understand this must be an incredibly difficult time for you." Elara sat her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Difficult is an understatement, Mr. Jenkins. I'm still trying to process it. I hope you have some very clear answers for me." He nodded, his gaze steady. "We do, and it's a story that has been kept secret for a very long time. A story of discretion, protection, and a love that blossomed quietly away from the spotlight." He paused, then reached for a folder on his desk. "Let's begin at the beginning, shall we?" Elara braced herself, her heart thumping. The journey had started, but the real revelation was just about to begin. Mr. Jenkins opened a folder, his movements precise and deliberate. This was not a random discovery, but the result of a meticulously guarded secret finally coming to light. Elara listened, her breath held captive in her chest. She wanted to believe, yet a part of her still resisted, clinging to the familiar narrative of her life. "Your mother, Catherine, was an art student at the time, living a very independent bohemian life. She was visiting friends in Los Angeles when their paths crossed." He paused, looking at Elara as if gauging her reaction. "It was not a public affair. It was a private connection that bloomed away from the prying eyes. Bloomed away from the prying eyes of the media. Elvis war." Elara pictured her mother, young and vibrant, amidst the chaos of Los Angeles, meeting a tired rock star. It was so unlike the reserved Catherine she knew, yet there was a glimmer of truth in the description. Her mother had always possessed a unique artistic sensibility. She chose to keep the pregnancy and your birth a complete secret from the world, and specifically from the Presley family. Why? Elara interjected, the word a desperate plea. "Gray, why keep it from them? From me?" She wanted to protect you from the grief and chaos she herself experienced. She also understood the legal complexities and potential disputes that might arise. She chose peace for you at a personal cost. To hers, a small yellowed photograph across the desk. It was a grainy black and white image, a young woman with long flowing hair and kind eyes. Unmistakably, her mother was laughing, her head thrown back. Next to her, a man with familiar sideburns and a gentle smile, looking relaxed and happy, his arm casually around her shoulder. It was Elvis. Not the flamboyant stage persona, but a softer, more intimate image. A young man, a private moment. Tears welled in Elara's eyes. She picked up the photo, tracing the edges of her mother's smile. This was real. This was proof, beyond a lawyer's words. This was her mother, young and in love with him. Catherine also left behind a journal, Mr. Jenkins continued, his voice soft. It details her relationship with Elvis, her decision-making process. She specified that this journal, along with other personal effects, should be given to you at the appropriate time. She entrusted them to our firm to be held in trust and to our firm. To be held in trust and to our firm to be held entrusted to the ongoing confidential paternity pay. It was a measure of incredible foresight and trust on Catherine's part, ensuring that one day, if you chose, you could know the truth without public spectacle or personal hardship. Mr. Jenkins slid a thick envelope across the desk. Inside, you will find the official DNA test results. They were processed and verified by 2 independent, highly reputable laboratories. The probability of paternity is 99.9999%. The scientific jargon blurred, but the numbers, the percentage screamed at her. It was irrefutable. It was true. She was Elvis Presley's daughter, the king, her father. Quiet, gentle story her mother had told her was true, just deeply, profoundly incomplete. Overwhelmed, Elara could only stare at the document, the photograph. Her entire life, the narrative of her existence, had just been rewritten in a single earth-shattering moment. She felt a strange mix of emotions, profound sadness for the secret her mother had carried, a sense of longing for a father she never knew, and a bewildered awe at the sheer impossibility of it all. The king of rock and roll was her dad. Her story, which she always thought so ordinary, was anything but. The following day, still reeling from the revelations, Elara returned to Mr. Jenkins' office. This time there was a different folder waiting for her, bound in worn leather. This, Mr. Jenkins, said his voice softer than before, is from your mother, Catherine. Her journal, some letters, and a few personal effects she wanted you to have. Elara's hands trembled as she took the journal. The leather was smooth, softened by time, and the faint scent of old paper and something floral vaguely familiar wafted from its pages. It was her mother's handwriting, neat and flowing, filling page after page. She spent hours in a quiet room at the law firm, lost in her mother's words. Catherine had started the journal shortly after meeting Elvis. She described him not as a superstar, but as a man burdened by his own fame. August 1976 saw him again today. Mr. Presley, as he insists, I call him, though it feels absurd. He's so different from the persona. Quiet, thoughtful, a little sad around the eyes. He listened to me. Talk about my art for hours. Truly listened, like no one ever has. He asked about my dreams, not just what I thought of his music. He has a kindness about him, a gentle soul that the world doesn't see. Elara felt a pang in her chest. Her mother had captured him perfectly, cutting through the legend to the man. Catherine detailed their secret dates, quiet dinners, late-night drives through the Hollywood Hills, picnics by secluded lakes. Elvis, trying to escape the glare, found solace in Catherine's grounded presence. She wrote about his laughter, his surprisingly good sketching skills, his love for gospel music, and his deep, almost childlike vulnerability. September 1976. We talked about his childhood in Tupelo, about his mother Gladys, whom he still misses so terribly. He spoke of the pressures, the loneliness. He told me he sometimes wished he could just disappear, just be a regular person. I told him he was more regular to me than anyone I'd ever met. He just smiled that slow, sweet smile and squeezed my hand. Elara could almost hear his voice. Imagine his touch. This wasn't the Elvis of documentaries and concert footage. This was a man, her father, seen through the eyes of the woman who loved him. There were letters too. Short, sweet notes from Elvis to Catherine, signed simply E. One particular note caught Elara's eye. It was dated a few weeks before his death, hastily scrawled on hotel stationery. My dearest Kay, just wanted to tell you I'm thinking of you. You bring a light into my life that's been missing for a long time. Hold on to that fire, sweet girl. Don't let anyone dim it. Hope to see you soon. Always. E. The raw emotion in his simple words brought fresh tears to Elara's eyes. He had loved her mother. He had valued her life. Catherine's journal continued into the months. After his death, her grief was palpable, raw. Then the shocking discovery of her pregnancy. October 1977. I'm pregnant. The world is mourning. The king and I'm carrying a piece of him, a living, breathing secret. What do I do? How can I bring a child into that chaos? I saw what fame did to him. I can't do that to our baby. Our child deserves a normal life, a quiet life, free from the endless whispers and expectations. Her mother's decision, once a mystery, now made profound, heartbreaking sense. It wasn't a rejection, but an act of immense love and protection. The journal described Catherine's move back to Portland, her quiet birth, and her unwavering determination to shield Elara from the storm. She wrote about watching Elara grow, seeing glimpses of Elvis in her certain tilt of the head, a mischievous sparkle in her eyes, a surprising tenderness towards animals. April 2002, Elara, my sweet girl. You have his dimples when you smile, and sometimes a certain sadness in your eyes, just like his. I hope one day you understand why I did this. I hope you forgive me for keeping this secret. But I swear every decision was made out of love for you, to give you the most normal, happy life possible. He would have wanted that for you. He truly would. Elara closed the journal, her fingers tracing the faded ink. A profound sense of peace settled over her, mixed with an ache in her heart. She didn't feel angry or betrayed. She felt understood. Her mother's sacrifice, her unwavering love, shone through every word. She looked at her reflection in the office window. Had she ever truly seen herself? Now she saw not just Elara Vance, bookstore clerk, but Elara Presley, daughter of Catherine Vance and Elvis Presley. The connection, once an abstract concept, now felt deeply personal, almost sacred. She wasn't just a historical footnote, she was a continuation, a living legacy. And, for the first time in her life, she felt a deeper sense of who she was and who she was meant to be. The mystery of her father was solved, and in its place, a complex, beautiful truth was beginning to emerge. The next step, Mr. Jenkins explained, was to meet with Elvis's other known heir, his daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. Elara's stomach churned with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. How would she react? Would she believe her? Would she resent her? The meeting was arranged for the following afternoon, not at the law firm, but at a discreet private residence on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Mr. Jenkins accompanied Elara, providing a steady, reassuring presence. The house was elegant but unpretentious. A woman with piercing blue eyes and a quiet grace greeted them at the door. She looked a lot like her father. This had to be Lisa Marie. Ms. Vance, Lisa Marie said, her voice surprisingly soft, shaking Elara's hand. Her grip was firm. Thank you for coming. Please come in, Mr. Jenkins. They settled into a comfortable living room bathed in natural light. Lisa Marie sat opposite Elara, her gaze direct and assessing. There was no warmth yet, but no immediate hostility. Either just a cautious curiosity. Mr. Jenkins has explained the situation to me. Lisa, Marie began, her voice calm. The DNA evidence. My father's posthumous paternity project was something we took very seriously, even if it remained largely dormant, and I continued to oversee it. We always knew it was a possibility that other children existed, given my father's life and the times. Elara swallowed her throat suddenly dry. I understand this must be a shock for you too. It certainly was for me. My mother, she never spoke of him beyond saying he was a musician who passed away. She wanted to protect me. So, Mr. Jenkins explained, Lisa, Marie said, a faint sigh escaping her lips. She sounds like she was a very strong woman to carry such a secret and to make such a choice. She paused, her gaze resting on Elara's face. There's something about your eyes. They have a familiar look, a softness I remember in my father when he was relaxed away from the crowds. Elara felt a strange sense of connection, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. My mother left a journal, she offered, and some letters. She wrote about him, about their time together. She described him as kind, thoughtful, very different from his public image. That sounds like him. He was a deeply private man, despite the show. He longed for normalcy, and he trusted very few people completely. If your mother was one of them, it speaks volumes about her character. Tell me about her. What kind of person was Catherine Vance? Elara felt a wave of relief. This wasn't an interrogation. This was a conversation. She began to speak of her mother, her love for art, her quiet wisdom, her fierce independence, her unwavering dedication to giving Elara a stable, loving home. She spoke of the lemon meringue pie, of long walks in the park, of her mother teaching her to find beauty in everyday things. As Elara spoke, she saw a subtle change in Lisa Marie's expression, a softening, a hint of understanding. "She sounds lovely, Lisa," Marie said genuinely. "And I understand why she made the choices she did. My father's life was complicated. The scrutiny never ended. To be born into that without the protection of a public marriage would have been incredibly difficult. I don't want anything from you or from the estate, Ms. Presley," Elara said, her voice earnest. I needed to understand, to know the truth. My mother wanted me to have a normal life, and I have. It's been a good life. I'm just trying to make sense of this new information." Lisa Marie gave a faint smile. "Please call me Lisa, Marie, and I believe you. I've met enough people who claim to be part of the family, and they always want something. You don't have that look in your eye, you just have a look of surprise, and maybe a little awe." "If I'm honest," Elara chuckled, a nervous laugh that quickly turned into a more relaxed one. "Ah, certainly, and disbelief. I work in a bookstore. This is a lot, Lisa." Marie's smile widened a fraction. "My father loved to read. He had thousands of books. Maybe that's something you inherited from him." She paused, then rose from her chair. "Look, this is a lot to take in for both of us, but I feel a connection. Perhaps we should explore it. Would you be open to spending some more time here? I'm going to Graceland next week, and I think it would be good for you to see it. Not as a fan, but as family." The invitation hung in the air, a lifeline to a past Elara had never known, a future she couldn't yet comprehend. Graceland, her father's home, the place where so much of his legend resided. I would like that very much, Lisa," Marie Elara said, her voice filled with a quiet emotion. A new chapter was opening, one that promised not just answers, but perhaps a sense of belonging she hadn't even known she was missing. The flight to Memphis felt different this time. Elara sat beside Lisa Marie, who, despite her own quiet nature, had shared stories of her father. Small anecdotes that painted a more human picture of the king. They talked about his love for peanut butter and banana sandwiches, his generosity, his mischievous sense of humor. Elara listened, absorbing every detail, feeling the space between the legend and the man slowly shrink. Arriving in Memphis, Elara felt a peculiar blend of trepidation and reverence. This city, so intertwined with her father's legacy, was now a part of her own story. Lisa Marie had arranged for them to visit Graceland privately, before the daily crowds. Walking through the gates of Graceland, Elara felt an almost spiritual tremor. It wasn't just a tourist attraction, it was a home. Her father's home. The white columned mansion stood majestically under the morning sun, a symbol of a dream that had come true for a poor boy from Tupelo. Inside the house felt lived in, despite its status as a museum. The famous jungle room, with its green shag carpet and Polynesian decor, felt surprisingly cozy. The TV room, with its 3 televisions, spoke of a man who loved entertainment, who sought connection, even through screens. Lisa Marie led Elara through the rooms, pointing out details. sharing memories. This is where he'd play the piano for hours, she said, gesturing to the grand piano in the music room. He loved to sing gospel here late at night, just for himself or for close friends. Elara's gaze drifted to the piano. She imagined him there, his voice filling the room, not for millions, but for the sheer joy of it. A warmth spread through her chest. As they walked through the house, Elara felt a strange sense of familiarity. It wasn't a memory, but an echo, a resonance. She saw a small antique wooden horse on a shelf in the living room, a simple toy. "My mother mentioned something like that in her journal," Elara murmured almost to herself. She said, Elvis told her a story about a toy horse he had as a child, how he cherished it because it was one of the few toys he owned. Lisa Marie stopped, her eyes wide. "That's amazing. This is his childhood horse." "It was one of the few things he brought from Tupelo. It was very precious to him." "How could your mother have known that?" "He must have told her," Elara said, a lump forming in her throat. She wrote about him sharing his childhood memories, the simple ones that truly mattered to him. It was a small detail but profoundly significant. It was a shared secret, a piece of his intimate history that only those closest to him would have known. It cemented the reality of her mother's connection to him, and by extension, Elara's own. They walked out into the meditation garden, a place of profound peace, where Elvis and many of his family members were laid to rest. The sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the memorials. Lisa Marie stood beside her father's grave, a solemn look on her face. Elara stood a respectful distance away, her own emotions swirling. She looked at the name on the plaque, Elvis Presley, her father. She reached out, her fingers hovering just above the cool marble. A wave of sorrow, deep and unexpected, washed over her. Sorrow for the life he lived, the burdens he carried, and the quiet, loving man her mother had known, and sorrow for the father she never had the chance to meet. "He would have loved you, Elara," Lisa Marie said, her voice quiet as if reading Elara's thoughts. "He always wanted more children. He would have been so proud of the quiet, strong woman you are." Elara turned to Lisa Marie, tears in her eyes. "I wish I could have known him, not the king, but the man my mother loved. You know him now in a way through her words, through the quiet corners of this house, and maybe a little bit through me. We can share our memories of him. It's not the same, but it's something." In that moment, standing in the tranquil garden, surrounded by the echoes of a legendary life, Elara felt a profound sense of belonging. The initial shock and disbelief began to recede, replaced by a deep, heartwarming acceptance. She was not just a secret, a legal formality. She was family, and Graceland, once a distant landmark, now felt like a part of her own story. A place where the past and the present converged, offering a unique form of healing and connection. The peace of Graceland was a brief respite. As soon as word leaked of Elara Vance's existence and her connection to Elvis, a media storm of epic proportions erupted. Started with whispers on entertainment blogs, then escalated to full-blown headlines. Elvis's secret daughter revealed. DNA proof shakes Presley estate. Elara, back in New York, found herself thrust into a whirlwind she was utterly unprepared for. Paparazzi camped outside her hotel. Her phone, which she deliberately kept private, somehow started ringing with calls from desperate reporters. Social media exploded with speculation, disbelief, and fierce debate among Elvis fans. "It's a hoax. She's after money." Elvis would never have kept a child's secret. The online comments were brutal, a torrent of skepticism and accusations. Elara felt overwhelmed, exposed. She was used to the quiet hum of a bookstore, not the blinding flash of cameras and the relentless intrusion into her private life. Mr. Jenkins, prepared for this, had a team of public relations experts ready. They advised Elara to stay quiet to avoid making any public statements until the family was ready to address it officially, but the pressure was immense. One morning, a reporter managed to get through to her, feigning interest in a rare book. When Elara realized who she was speaking to, the reporter pounced, firing questions about her mother, her motives, her demands for the estate. Elara hung up, shaking, feeling violated. Her grandmother Alice called daily, her voice a soothing balm. "Just breathe, sweet pea. Remember who you are. This isn't about them. It's about your truth." Lisa Marie also became a Rocky. She called Elara frequently, offering support and advice. They'll dig into everything, but you have to remember, they don't know you. They don't know our father. Stay true to yourself. A few days later, a joint press conference was announced. Mr. Jenkins would make the official statement, with Lisa Marie Presley by his side. Elara, at her own request, would not be present. She wanted to avoid the spectacle. At least, for now, the press conference was broadcast. Mr. Jenkins, looking grave but resolute, confirmed the findings of the paternity test, detailing the legal and scientific process. He presented a redacted copy of the DNA report and the notarized will excerpts. Then Lisa Marie stepped forward. Her face was serious, but her eyes held a compassionate warmth. Catherine was a wonderful private woman who chose to protect her daughter from the intense scrutiny that defined my father's life. We are all adjusting to this new reality, and we ask the media to allow Elara the space she needs. Lisa Marie's dignified statement and her unwavering support made a significant difference. While some skepticism lingered, a wave of empathy and understanding began to spread, especially among long-time Elvis fans who admired Lisa Marie's candor. Elara watched the broadcast from her hotel room, tears streaming down her face. Lisa Marie's words, her public affirmation, meant the world. It was a lifeline in a sea of chaos. The media storm was far from over, but she was no longer alone. She had family, a connection to a legend, and a truth that finally was out in the open. The quiet life she once knew might be irrevocably changed, but perhaps a new, unexpected path was opening before her. The initial media frenzy eventually subsided, settling into a low hum of continued interest. Elara learned to navigate the occasional reporter, the curious stares, and the constant online chatter. She didn't seek interviews or public appearances. Her goal wasn't celebrity, it was understanding and connection. Her bond with Lisa Marie deepened. They spent hours on the phone sharing stories, not just about Elvis, but about their lives, their dreams, their struggles. Elara learned about Lisa Marie's own journey of living with a famous name, the pressures, the joys, the heartbreaks. Lisa Marie in turn found solace in Elara's grounded nature, her quiet strength that reminded her of Catherine. "It's like I have a piece of him back," Lisa Marie admitted one evening, her voice raw. "Connection to a part of his life I never knew. Your mother's journal. It helped me see him in a different light too, not just as my father, but as a young man finding love, even if it was fleeting and secret." Elara began to explore her own identity within this new reality. She was Elara Vance, but she was also Elara Presley, daughter of Elvis. How did these two identities coexist? She decided she didn't have to choose. She could be both. Growing up, she'd always enjoyed singing quietly to herself, but never pursued it seriously. Now, sometimes when she was alone in her apartment, she'd hum a gospel tune or a blues melody and feel a stirring within her. It wasn't a desire for fame, but a simple, profound pull towards the rhythm, the harmony. It was as if a part of her father, long dormant within her, was finally awakening. Lisa Marie encouraged her. "My dad used to say music was in his bones. Maybe it's in yours too. Don't be afraid to explore it, even if it's just for yourself." Elara started, taking casual guitar lessons just for fun. She was clumsy at first, but the chords began to feel natural, the melodies coming to her with an ease that surprised her. She wasn't pursuing a career in music, she was simply finding a new way to connect with a part of herself. A part of her heritage, the Presley name, brought challenges. Of course, Presley, she had to learn to build strong boundaries, to discern who was genuine and who was not. She leaned heavily on her grandmother Alice, who provided steady, unwavering support. "Your worth isn't in a name, sweet pea," Alice reminded her. "It's in your heart, in your character. That's what truly matters." Elara started volunteering at a local music therapy program for children. She found immense joy in sharing her newfound musical skills, simple chords and comforting melodies, with kids who were struggling. It was a quiet way to honor her father's legacy of generosity and love for music without seeking the spotlight. She wasn't Graceland, but she was a small, quiet melody that carried the same spirit. She also took time to revisit her mother's journal. Understanding her mother's choices brought a deep sense of peace. Catherine had given her the greatest gift: a normal childhood, free from the crushing weight of fame. Now armed with the truth, Elara could choose how to embrace her legacy on her own terms. She was finding her place not as an imitation of a legend, but as an authentic individual, a bridge between two worlds. The quiet, grounded life her mother built for her, and the extraordinary musical legacy of her father. She was learning that family wasn't just about shared DNA, but about shared stories, mutual respect, and an unwavering love that transcended secrets and time. Months turned into a year. Elara's life had irrevocably changed, but she had found a way to weave the extraordinary into her ordinary. She still worked part-time at the bookstore, finding comfort in the familiar scent of paper and the quiet rhythm of shelving books. But her evenings were often filled with music, her fingers now more confident on the guitar, her voice finding its own gentle harmony. She and Lisa Marie had become genuinely close, a bond forged in shared grief, surprising revelations, and an evolving understanding of their unique family. They visited Graceland together occasionally, no longer just as guest and host, but as sisters, sharing quiet moments in the meditation garden, talking about their father, piecing together the puzzle of his life from their different perspectives. Elara decided to honor her father's legacy in her own way. She established a small private foundation in her mother's name, the Catherine Vance Arts and Music Fund. Its purpose was to provide scholarships and resources for young aspiring artists and musicians from disadvantaged backgrounds, allowing them to pursue their passions quietly, much like her mother had done, and perhaps much like Elvis would have wanted for any child with a spark of creativity. It was a way to give back, to use her unexpected inheritance for good. Without drawing attention to herself, she found peace in the choice her mother had made. There was no bitterness, only gratitude for the normal, loving childhood she had been given. She understood that Catherine's secret wasn't a betrayal, but a profound act of love, a desire to shield her daughter from the very forces that had both elevated and tormented Elvis. One evening, Elara sat on her couch, flipping through her mother's journal. She paused on a passage written shortly after Elara's birth. "My greatest hope for Elara is that she finds her own song, that she lives a life filled with purpose and joy, whatever that may be, and that she knows deep in her heart that she is loved completely and unconditionally by me and by the man who was her father. He was a good man, a gentle soul, and his music was a gift to the world, and so is she." Tears pricked Elara's eyes. She closed the journal, holding it to her chest. Her mother's hopes for her had come true. She had found her own song, her own purpose, and she knew without a doubt that she was loved. The world still knew her as Elvis Presley's secret daughter, but that was just one facet of her identity. She was also Catherine Vance's daughter, her grandmother, Alice's granddaughter, a friend, a musician, a quiet advocate for the arts. The secret was no longer a burden. It was a part of her story, a unique thread in the rich tapestry of her life. She had learned that family was vast and encompassing, extending beyond conventional definitions. It was the blood ties to a legendary father and a loving half-sister. It was the enduring bond with her wise grandmother, and it was the quiet protective love of a mother who made impossible choices out of profound devotion. Elara had come to terms with the past, forgiving the secrets, embracing the truth. She understood that Elvis's legacy wasn't just about the music or the fame. It was about the heart of a man who touched millions and who, in a quiet, private moment, had touched her mother's heart, leading to her own existence. Her future, once predictable, was now filled with unexpected possibilities. She would continue her quiet life, but now with a deeper sense of self, a stronger connection to her roots, and a profound appreciation for the intricate, sometimes hidden ways that destiny unfolds. The journey had been shocking, bewildering, but ultimately heartwarming. She had found her truth, and in doing so had found herself. Life for Elara Vance had settled into a beautiful, unexpected harmony. Public curiosity had largely waned, replaced by a respectful acknowledgement of her story. She was no longer a headline, but a quiet footnote in the vast narrative of the Presley legacy, and a cherished part of the family. She had moved back to Portland, to her beloved apartment filled with books and plants, and to the comforting presence of her grandmother. Her part-time job at the bookstore felt less like a job and more like a grounding ritual, a connection to the simple, authentic life she had always known. Her guitar lessons had blossomed into something more. She still didn't perform publicly, but she found immense joy in composing her own simple melodies, weaving in echoes of gospel and blues, finding a unique voice that felt inherently. Sometimes late at night she would record them on her phone just for herself, a private tribute to the music that ran in her veins. Lisa Marie and Elara spoke often, sharing laughs and confidences. They were sisters, not by upbringing, but by blood, and by an unexpected profound connection. Lisa Marie often visited Portland, seeking a respite from the spotlight, and Elara would in turn travel to Memphis, or wherever Lisa Marie happened to be, for quiet visits. They had become pillars of support for each other, understanding the unique pressures and joys of their shared lineage. One sunny afternoon, Elara was in her grandmother's garden helping her plant new roses. The air was filled with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. Grandma Alice hummed an old tune, a gospel hymn that sounded strangely familiar to Elara. "Grandma," Elara said, "did you ever know anything about my mother's relationship with Elvis?" Alice smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Your mother was a very private woman, Sweet Pea. She didn't share everything, but I knew she carried a profound love and a profound sorrow from her younger days. I saw the way she looked at you sometimes with a love and I always knew there was a story there, bigger than she let on. I never pressed her. It wasn't my place. Thank you for always letting me be just me, for giving me a safe place to land." "That's what family does, Elara," Alice replied, patting her hand. "Family isn't just about who you're born to. It's about who loves you, who supports you, who stands by you, no matter what surprises life throws your way." That evening, Elara sat on her porch swing, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. She thought about her life, the astonishing twists and turns it had taken. She was no longer just the quiet bookstore clerk. She was a woman with a rich, complex history, a secret child of a legend yet firmly rooted in her own identity. She had found peace with the secrets of the past, understanding the choices made out of love and protection. She had embraced the extraordinary truth of her heritage without letting it define her entirely. She was Elvis Presley's daughter. Yes, but she was also Catherine Vance's daughter, carrying the quiet strength and artistic spirit of her mother. The legacy of Elvis Presley to her was no longer just about the famous songs or the iconic image. It was about kindness, vulnerability, a deep love for music, and the simple human desire for connection. She carried a piece of that legacy within her, not in rhinestones or a spotlight, but in the quiet melodies she composed, in the way she listened to others, and in the love she cultivated in her own life. She looked up at the stars, A vast comforting expanse. Life was full of mysteries, but some, when finally revealed, brought not chaos, but a new, beautiful harmony. Elara smiled. Her life was still ordinary in many ways, but it was also extraordinary, filled with a newfound sense of belonging, purpose, and an unbreakable connection to a family, both seen and unseen, that spanned generations and transcended the wildest dreams. The secret was out, but the true story, her story, had only just begun.